So it's been about 42 days since Etheria Restart has launched. I played the game every single day. We've put in well over 200 hours. Like we're like on the verge of like craziest, like 300, maybe more than that, in terms of playing Etheria Restart. So I think I have a good grasp, especially because I've been whaling in the game, and I want to offer possibly a different perspective about changes I would like to see implemented in the game. Especially when it comes to Etheria Restart, and knowing that this game, the main core focus of this game is to get players to the PvP side of things. And I think that we are well away from getting players towards that portion unless they have been whaling, right? So I'm gonna go through multiple different sections about multiple changes that I would like to see. But one of the first ones, and I made this like the last point when I tried to record this video the first time, but I want to make this like the first point, right? Esports is one of the main focus of this game, or that's what they're trying to make it one of the main focus, right? And we have this esports carnival that's about to go down for the global invitational, the EWS they're calling it, and that's what drew me to this game, right? Essentially the whole factor of like, all right, a new PvP game in the gacha space. You know, I really like the graphics that we had going on. I really like the 3D models, you know, and stuff like that. But the PvP is what, you know, drew me to this game. And it's great that we're gonna get content creators and other players, you know, flown out to China to, you know, further get more eyes on the game and whatnot. What I also think is needed to be addressed was, who are these people that are competing? Like, predict the champion. We didn't get to really see the qualifications for this in order to pick a champion or stuff like that, but the fact that they're just blank faces and we know nothing about these players, nothing about the style of gameplay that they utilize, whether some person's more aggro than others and whatnot, I think that needs to be changed, right? The biggest thing I do think is that we need more communication from Etheria Restart, the devs, to figure out what's going to be happening about the overall PvP focus on this game. Right now, I've played a lot of other games, right? I'm talking about card games, the highest levels and championship tournaments, finals, and all the other stuff. I played in fighting games as well. Talk about playing at Evo and a couple of all these other things. So I'm very, you know, if it comes to tournaments, and something, especially when it comes to not only being a person playing a tournament, a person running a tournament, there's a lot of things that I would want to suggest, right? And I made a graphic here of some suggestions. Obviously, like, I took time to make this. Like, it's pretty bare bones, right? But on this graphic here, I have like 3 ways players can actually qualify for, like, say, one of these like global or these quarterly championships. Like after a certain amount of seasons, you're gonna have, like, you know, a true seasonal. Even though we call this a season, you know, it's not like it's lasting for like all the way for the spring, all the way for the fall and whatnot. So it's like having these monthly tournaments build up towards people qualifying for an actual seasonal, so these quarterly events, right? We're right now in the midst of summer, right? So let's say this gets implemented for the fall and the winter. So we go to the arena mode here, right? In arena realm, we have Etheria and Summon Arena. I'm not going to use Fearless Arena because Fearless Arena is like a mini in-game tournament that really doesn't yield much outside of just like some other in-game rewards, depending on how many that you win and stuff like that. So I want to use these 2 modes because usually a lot of these games and even the competitors are going to only focus on the RTA, the Summit Arena, right? And that's fine. Look, I'm not saying that we shouldn't focus on the Summon Arena. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying that that should not be the only focus, especially because the only players that were going to be able to make it to Summon Arena right now are paid players, and that's going to be that's not going to change anytime soon, right? Especially with how the pain points on the PvE side is. So what I'm suggesting is that, yes, we're gonna have the people who are already mythic, because let's be honest, if you're qualifying for any of these esports tournaments, you have to be mythic at the least, right? So we're going to count the players who are going to be mythic in the Summon Arena, but I also suggest that we count players who are going to be mythic in Etheria as well, and you throw them into an online qualifier. So as long as you have made mythic in either Etheria or Summon Arena, you can join this monthly mythic open qualifier. And what I'm saying is, you know, you have all those players, right? There's probably gonna be like 2,000. You can run an online tournament for them. We already know that there's rules that you can use, like diamond rules, and it's going to be all RTA. So yes, the people who made Mythic and Etheria are gonna have to learn how to do some RTA and get used to it if they want to enter this particular open event. But it's a Mythic open qualifier where, you know, as long as you've made Mythic in a season or in a, you know, month, you can qualify and you can enter this tournament. And the, let's say the top cut or the winner and the runner up are gonna have the qualification and qualify for this quarterly, you know, championship tournament and whatnot. And I just gave out a number like 32 players just to have numbers there, but it might not be 32 players, it might be like 64. It doesn't really matter, right? The fact is, you know, you win or become second place in the monthly Mythic open qualifier, you get your invite to the quarterly championship, right? Then you run the same thing similarly on the Summon Arena. You take the top 256 players on ladder, you throw them into a tournament, and you let the runner-up and qualifier get to the quarterly championship, right? Then you take the same thing for the Etheria, right? You take the top 256 players, throw them into an online tournament, which you can stream and have commentators for, right? You know, shouts to Vulcan, right? And a lot of these other content creators who have been doing the streaming so far in commentation, like and you know, you throw them into a tournament and it's going to be RTA focused once again, right? And then you let those top players qualify for the quarterly championships, and then you run the quarterly championship. You take your winner and your runner up of the quarterly championships, you run 4 of them, and then you throw them into the world championships, right? That's one way for the world championships. Another way would be you have a global champion, right? Because I'm thinking about the regions. You have a global championship open to Mythic players, right? And all Mythic players essentially during that period can qualify to play in the global championships. You take the top 4 winners from global, you take the top 4 winners from, or the top 4 players from Europe, you take the top 4 players from Asia/APAC, which is Asia Pacific, and you take the top 4 players from China, because I know they mentioned that they're going to open up the region for China and Japan to also play, but usually China in these types of games usually gets an entire region and entire championship for themselves. So you have your top 4, right? And then you have a last chance qualifier that you do in person. Now, this in-person tournament, basically when you decide where the world championships wants to be and which country or which region, right? Then you do an in-person last chance qualifier, and the players who are able to qualify for this last chance qualifier are all players who once again have made Mythic. You get so you have to make Mythic, right? Maybe you make it that they have to reach Mythic a certain amount of times throughout the course of the entire season, instead of only inviting players who have made it to the top point of the ladder and stuff like that, right? That's the whole purpose of like the global championship, the Europe championship, the Asia Pacific championship, and the China championship. That's all invitational. Like, you have to be one of the top players to get there. Let the last chance qualifier be open to anyone who has made Mythic. Let these players have to fly into whatever region, right, to qualify for this tournament that's in person. And the main reason why it's in person is because you want a crowd to be there while you crown a world champion. So the players who have played in this last chance qualifier will be there in the crowd, and you're talking about giving out, you know, like event awards, like exclusive skins maybe for the people that are in the event. You're talking about giving, you know, viewers, you know, drops as well. So this is a whole like experience that you're trying to cultivate, right? Where at the end of the day, you're going to crown a world champion. And one of the best features, or I should say one of the best things, especially when running and organizing a tournament like this, usually tournaments like this are hard to run when you're talking about for video games. If you're talking about a fighting game like an Evo, you're going to need like multiple PS4s, I mean PS5s nowadays. Nintendo Switches. If it's Evo, it's PlayStation, it's owned by PlayStation, so you gotta only use PlayStations and whatnot. When it comes to like a card game championship, you're gonna need the table space, of course, for players to like sit across from each other, set up their decks with the table space. And then you're running like a feature match, which you're going to need a PC setup for the streamers anyway. And for the feature match with this particular game, you're gonna have, you know, your 2 PCs, and you can have a PC sponsor for that itself. And I'm just thinking about like event stuff, like a sponsorships, deck stuff. But all that experience aside that I personally have, like this is just something that I would like to suggest as a way that you can develop a championship series, especially for this game. Like, you're gonna of course have funding for the game, because, you know, once again, like the revenue reports came out, like $7 million plus was made. Who knows what the revenue report's gonna be like for the end of July. But, you know, making a championship series, of course, having a monetary amount attached to it, maybe making exclusive in-game skins for the winners or for people who vote for the winners, because there is this whole process where you get to predict a champion and whatnot. Like, I think that's what we can have for the esports. And hey, you know what, people watching this video can let me know if I'm smoking crack or whatever. Maybe I'm just way off about what we can possibly have, but I'm just saying, if it was my game, and I'm developing my own game anyway, but like if it was my game, this is something that I would try to implement on the PvP side. Right now, in terms of not talking about PvP, let's talk about the PvE and the other things that's going on in this game. Right, the first things first, I want to call attention towards the continuous battle, right? And I'm going like in super reverse. The continuous battle feature, I love it. It's nice. I think it could be better. And the reason why I think it could be better is because the continuous battle feature right now isn't totally respecting players' times in the best way possible. So I can do a, you know, 10 runs right now, right? And this is going to take, as you can see, a total completion time of 7 minutes, and that's just for the ones that were all successful. We had 2 losses here, right? So yes, I'm grateful that we have this dream ball, which gives us 8,000 training data. That's great. You know what would be even better than, you know, having the continuous battle run for 7 minutes? How about the continuous battle run for like 1 minute, so that it can figure out calculations, right? So it could crunch all these numbers. How about we make that the change for continuous battle? Because honestly, it makes no sense why we have to wait 7 minutes, or just even wait enough time to figure out if one of these units or if a battle is going to be successful or not, when we know that we can actually just skip all of that itself and just get to the next battle itself, right? So I'm suggesting the continuous battle be just an actual sweep function. Once you 3-star or the actual battle itself, why not have it so that you can just sweep it, right? Let the numbers crunch and let's take away all that time, right? If you can let the numbers run a quicker simulated battle, right? Look, you guys have introduced a 5 times mechanism for the affinity train, right? Which I haven't attempted today. There is a 5 times speed mechanism, which tells me that, you know, that it would take way too long if you had it at 3 times speed. That also must mean that there is a way for this to be run, this simulation to be run without even doing any of that, right? There has to be a way. So let's just implement that into continuous battle, and we save a lot of time, right? You don't want players spending 90% of their time doing PvE to only do the 10% of PvP. No, I'm not. And you also don't want players doing 90% PvP and only doing 10% PvE. However, while that might actually be better overall, right? You know, because more players you would rather more players spend time on the PvE trying to get to these different rewards, to get to these esports stakes and stuff like that. Like, I'm suggesting a 60-40, where more time is spent on PvP and less time spent on PvE. So it's 60% PvP, 40% PvE. Okay, maybe even 70-30 to make it even better. Right, let's start thinking about better ways for quality of life for players. That way, like, we don't need this icon here to just be hovering and while we do other content, let's just log on, run the simulation. All right, I just saw that we have 2 wins, 1 defeat. I know that I need to put better gear on my characters so we can start having runs be 10 out of 10, right? So that's one fix, I think, for continuous battle, which will save people a whole lot of time. You guys are also playing the game as well, so you also know this is one of the pain points to sit around. Let's not double the continuous battle like options. I know some other people have requested that. Let's just nip it in the bud immediately and make sure that you run the simulation. Like, you can do some special animation, right? And then you can have, like, you know, like some sound effects and whatnot if you want, for like circle, 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 X, X, circle, X, X, like whatever way you want to do it. Make it less than 1 minute. All right, make it less than 1 minute, because honestly it should not take hours upon hours, especially when you're max refreshing, for players who are, and we are talking about this as a point of whales, because you know we're driving the game and with the economy, like in the funds. So yeah, let's just nip that in the bud. Now, moving on to one of the other topics that stems from the continuous battle is union. Look, the union system, I love it. You know, there's not many complaints I have about the union system, but the union system and what's going on in the union system is actually puzzling. And the reason why I'm saying it's puzzling, because this doesn't make any sense to me. All right, we have the United Front layout, right? With the United Front layout, we are able to select, you know, multiple characters that we want. And it's to our understanding that the gear on these characters does not change after you lock them in. All right, so hear me out. Why is it that United Front is the only mode in the game that gets that quality of life, you know, update, that quality of life fix? The reason why I'm saying that is because, why is it so that United Front can have the gear locked and you just have to come in and if you want to update your gear, but no other mode in this game, including the Union boss, has that type of feature? Okay, to me, and especially game development wise, it's a simple fix, right? We have created a pain point for no reason, right, at all. Because why is it that United Front gets that type of, you know, love and service, but a mold such as Etheria doesn't get that type of love and service? Like, I can't have any gear on my Kazuyu right now because I need her to go on and farm other types of PvE content, where I'm getting beat the fuck up in the Etheria. Okay, like I'm getting smashed, I'm getting dog walk, my booties are getting clapped, okay, in Etheria, because I have to allocate all that gear to other characters because we don't have the same love and support that United Front has. Okay, like, to just make the gear sticky, right? Just make it so that the last time you updated these characters and you formulated your, you know, your essentially your formation, that let it just remain as that until you change it. If you delete a gear, right, let that also factor in, because the questions I now have, once that was announced on that other stream, because the United Front has the gear locked in, what happens if you delete the gear? What happens if you recycle it, right? Is the data still going to be retained? Because then that's a broken system, right? In a way, like you should be penalized for having recycled gear, right? Especially if the data is going to be saved. So like, maybe let's make that a little bit more apparent. But this to me would mitigate the changes that people have been asking for, in terms of let's have separate PvE and separate PvP gear. Like, of course that's a nice quality of fix, but to me, making United Front the standard across all game modes is an even better fix, because this way you don't have to create brand new code for players right now to have different PvP gear versus PvE gear. And if a lot of players even more so knew that the United Front gear is like locked one time and they just have to go and like change it if they want to optimize, like, to me that logic is better sounding throughout the entire game mode. Because let's say I lock my gear for, you know, right now in this run here, right, in this continuous battle. And I know that right now I got a 60% win rate. Obviously I want to get a better win rate so it could become 100%, like so we have a 70% win rate, right? Obviously I want to have a 100% win rate, but I need better gear in order to get to this, right? But I also don't want to take time to remove my gear from what's going on in Shadow Flame Hoyon Inferno to then go towards, you know, Threshold, where I have to, you know, farm Doki Doki gear itself, and that's different. I gotta go back into the Animus and reconfigure the models in order to like change all this stuff. Like that to me is time consuming, right? And you guys know that's time consuming, and you guys made the decision to make sure that United Front would not be like that. But to me, and I have to say it again, like if you figured that if players already are having trouble doing this for, you know, Threshold, doing this for PvP, but you made the decision to do it for United Front, why haven't we decided to just say that, you know what, let's make this the standard across, you know, all the modes, right? To me, it sounds like a much easier fix than trying to create something brand new. But that's what I'm going to talk about, the unions in the gear. I just handle that in both sections itself. Honestly, I could talk about the separate modes themselves and how they need buffs and nerfs. I think we all know that the Etheria coin needs to be buffed for all modes, for Grim Pursuit, for Threshold, Investigation, and GP Post by 20%. Okay, needs to be buffed completely. To me, the biggest thing that needs to be buffed is the ladder system. I think the ladder system, which I want to call attention to, it's great, you know, that as a paid player, I know I can buy lattices every week. Free-to-play players are kind of asked out, getting like 1 to 2 extra lattices a week, right? So as a paid player, I know I'm going to have that advantage, and eventually free-to-play players are going to catch up in what, like 6 months, maybe like 4 to 6 months as a free-to-play player. And that's a luxury just because I can spend money on the game. But for free-to-play players, they should have an option to farm perfect lattices. And if you don't have an option to farm perfect lattices, then you should make a conversion system where we can convert micro lattices into evolution lattices and evolution lattices into perfect lattices. The rate for micro lattice to evolution should be 3 to 1, and the rate for perfect lattice with evolution should be 2 evolution lattice equals 1 perfect lattice. And that to me would be a bigger fix, because the shadow print system is actually great, right? The fact that I'm able to convert, you know, some of the other shadow prints of lower tiers into red shadow prints, great. Let's do it for lattices. To me, it makes sense. We're already able to farm anima prototypes, like for the pulls in order to do summon and investigation. So why can we not do this for actually the main point of the game is to level up our characters, to build up our characters. Once again, that's to me what I would see as a major fix, right? Let's start getting more lattices into the game. Stop making so many different types of RNG drops. And let one of the pain points, if you want to add lattices to say GP posts, because investigation gives pull, then it's like when you do a 10 run, right? So this is after you've already done the continuous battle, make that like a what you call it, make that like a sweep function. Then you have the perfect lattice fragments, and for every 10 runs you're looking at getting 1 to 3. To me, that is infinitely better than nothing. Okay, and we're talking about at the end of a week, the maximum amount of fragments you can get is 150, right? And that's just through refreshing. That's through refreshing is 150 fragments. 150 fragments equals 3 perfect lattices. So at the rate of redeeming one of these lattices, so if you were to summon you a lot, right, you get a perfect lattice. If you go into your union shop, you get these fragments, you're gonna get 15 of them, right? If you go into the arena shop, which you gotta do some PvP, you could get 1 of these lattices a week, right? In Summon Arena, you gotta wait like 20 some odd days in order to get these perfect lattice fragments. Absolutely ridiculous, right? So like I said, at the rate of 1 week goes, you should be able to build or able to have at least 3 to 4 perfect lattices built, right? This of course does not include all the other content that's in the game that can give you lattices, because honestly, at the rate of where this game is going, you're going to be releasing at least 5 characters every 2 to 3 months, right? So we're gonna get to the point where we can have all these characters. It's great, it's nice, but no economy to build any of them at all, right? And for metas to develop, you're gonna have to start allowing players to farm more of these lattices so they can actually see them, because there is no training mode in this game, right? And the only way to figure out if a character is worth building or not is for other people to build the character, right? For other people to build the character, release some guide videos, and hopefully that information is good enough for people to be like, you know what, I want to get that. Right now people are finding out that Fu and Doki Doki are a great tag team, right? Will that work for everybody? We don't know, but there's enough people in the space that are saying like, hey, you know what, you should be building out your Fu, you should be building out your Doki Doki. But is that going to work for the longevity of every person? Especially like the people who can do this reliably are people like me who are whaling. Free-to-play players, I mean, it's already hard for them to pull a Light and Dark unit to begin with. So I mean, be that as it may, there's like no banner. We're not doing any banners for the Light and Dark units that are already in the game where people are crying and they want a Lily, right? You know, because Lily is just a surefire way to clear the majority of all content in the game. So like I said, the perfect lattices let people build these characters more. I mean, if you don't want to do that, I suggest bringing back the reconfiguration event, making that permanent. And that way we can have even more people. If you want to induce people to make content, what better way to have the reconfiguration event be permanent in the game, let it cost like 1,000 gems at the max, so, and let people develop and build characters as they go along, because they can utilize the reconfiguration event. It's not going to stop people from, you know, making new characters and figuring out, or it's not going to stop people from farming for the lattices to begin with, right? Or like that's never going to stop, because as the game comes out, more and more characters are going to come out. Of course, power creep is going to seep in here and there, but like, yeah, just like give us more ways to get lattices, or give us a pseudo training mode where we have reconfiguration, and knowing that it's going to cost 1,000 gems. Of course, you guys are going to get even more money because people are going to be utilizing or saving up their gems or buying, you know, gem refreshes, like, because people are going to have to figure out what are they going to use their gem refreshes for, or their gems for. Are they going to do it for refreshes? Are they going to do it to invest into continuously reconfiguring characters? You know, are they going to utilize it for any other function in this game? Okay, so that's what I gotta say about the lattice system. That was like probably one of the other biggest pain points that I wanted to address. Once again, in terms of like Grim Pursuit itself, or should I say, I'll start off with Threshold. You know, I already said the buff to Etheria coin, we already know that. Probably another nerf for Inferno across all bosses. Should not need 288 speed in order to clear Doki Doki, right? We already need like 200% in the effect accuracy in order for these things to pop off. So maybe we need a buff towards the models of effect resistance, so that effect resistance can be as good, as broken as it is for these bosses that can just, you know, shake it off, walk it off, or whatnot. If there's anything, and this one might be more controversial than others, a reroll system for the substats. Every 5 mythic models you recycle, you get a reroll ticket for a substat. Let it cost Etheria coin, lock it to models that have been max leveled, and make it so that you get a substat of the same level or better, essentially, right? So if you have speed, and I don't know who would do this, but let's say you have a substat of speed and it's a green, right? When you re-roll, you're going to either get a completely different substat or of the same color or better. So you might necessarily not get speed, but you're going to get another like substat that's going to be the same color or better, and then it continues to lock towards that, you know, like that. And that way, you're people who are recycling model, yes, you're going to be getting shells, or I mean, you're going to be getting Etheria coin, but you're also going to be getting you know, fragments for the reroll system, right? So that's at the rate of like 5 to 1. and make it cost like, I don't know, if you want to make it cost like 2 or something like that, I don't know, but that could be another way for, you know, to prioritize people like, hey, you know what, I'm doing all this PvE content, let me start to actually move over to PvP, where that seems to be what matters the most. Other than that, we have the Grim Pursuit. Honestly, you know, the Dream Ball, it was nice. I think it's a nice system to include. A lot of people will be like, yeah, you know what, we need to buff this even more. I think what honestly the biggest buff that we can throw in for this would be towards the passives, right? Like, we all know, kind of ridiculous, that we can go multiple, we can spend all of our training data and get like other BS, right, for this. So it's like every 5 passes should be a mythic. I mean, there are other ways that we could just get rid of the blue, get rid of the purple, and just only have yellow and red. But I mean, like, just make it so that every five rerolls we get a mythic passive, right? And to me, that makes it a much more sound. If you wanted to make something even further, like, you can nerf the amount of training data we have to spend from 30,000 to 20,000 per reroll. But yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta really say about the mythic shells. Actually, no, there's one more thing I gotta say about the mythic shells. Why in mythic do we have, you know, these matrix lines where it'll be Swift Rush and Bloodbath, and we get a 1 or a 2? I honestly think that we just need 3 all across the board, right? Once you're doing Inferno, you should only be dropping 3 and 3, and maybe dropping that 3rd line of matrix, right? It should literally only be 3 and 3, because 2, the ones that are already like 1 and 2, those are going to be turned into training data to begin with, right? And the ones that are 1 and 2 should only be, you know, kept towards hell and below, because yeah, like, it to me just makes no sense. So I mean, that's it, what I gotta say about Grim Pursuit. That's all pretty much I had to say about the ladder system. You know, the last thing, and this is why I switched around how I want to talk about this video, is the outfits. Funny enough, so it's nice that we can pay for gems with these outfits, and we get to see this girl, you know, and she's like, I guess, the main character of the game. But you know what's funny? Other than her sitting on the sofa, we rarely see her. I mean, she's only there for the main story mode. This homeware that she got, she's just sitting on the couch, like on the sofa. Like, what are we, like, I don't understand, right? But the main point I'm calling to this is that she can have all these different outfits, but the animists that we actually play with every single day only get these $11 skins, right? In their recolors. Like, we should have other skins for this game, and multiple skins for these different characters, obviously, right? They should not just be recolors. Recolors for $11 is wild in 2025. You know, yeah, that's just wild. And I know people have paid for those. I'm one of those whales that have not paid for any skins, because I'm not gonna pay for a different skin color. I'm gonna pay for something that looks amazing / looks different from what they're already wearing itself, right? To me, a recolor, like, I know like Street Fighter like 6 has like done this with the recolors, and a lot of games now are doing this with recolors. Like, recolors should not be costing $11. They shouldn't even be costing like even half that at all, right? This should be something that you should be able to unlock, like a recolor, when you max the character out, when you get to some level 50. Like, give us skins that look different from what the character is already wearing, right? If you want to make them have nightclub gear, so be it. If you want to give them a summer where this man's abs is out and whatnot, because people are going to call for gender equality, for sexualization of these characters and whatnot, so be it. Oh, who at that point, who cares? People will pay for that, and they'll feel like that is actually worth, you know, $10.99, $11, okay? But for a recolor, to me, that's not worth it, especially for a character like this. It's gonna cost gems in order to get some of her outfits as well. I'm not sure who is actually buying the Chaku ring stuff and whatnot in the shop, because other than what you see him doing in like the story mode, like, I don't know anyone who's really buying that. And it's great that Chaku and the main character can have, you know, alternate outfits. I say relocate all of the budget towards the Animus and developing them in new skins that cost that same price of, you know, $10.99. You know, that's all I gotta say, folks. That's all I want to yap about. I know I yapped about a lot. I wanted to call attention towards like the esports stuff. Like I said, there's a lot that I like about this game. Obviously, I've been playing it for like almost 300 hours or so. So, you know, and we've been wailing in the game, but that doesn't mean that things still couldn't be fixed for the quality of life of stuff. To me, the biggest quality of a life offender is this system here and continuous battle. The fact of the matter is that I shouldn't need, you know, 10 minutes to know if I'm gonna be, you know, a 70% win rate, right? And there's also the other option to like choose whether you want to stop after each battle you lose. Like, no, just make it a sweep function. To me, that will kill hours. Okay, we're talking about hours are going to be deleted from people worrying about, well, how long is this run going to be? You know, I can tell you right now, from making a video and just being on this game since 8 a.m. right, and it's now 11:19, and I'm still going through the max refresh of this, and I have yet to do any of the PvP part, right? And I look at other content creators and other people who are streaming the game, and I see how much time they're spending on the continuous battle, and I just look at the people who are doing like the slowest runs possible, and they're spending like 10 to 15 minutes per run. Like, I'm just like, bro, like, why, right? And why is this a pain point in the game? Like, I'm not sure like if this is an actual point of it. Like, if you're not getting any money for players staying on the game, right, for long periods of time once they're in the app itself, if you're only form of like, because I can understand if they're getting money, if ads are being run in the game itself, and you know, for every ad that gets shown like a YouTube video, you know, I can understand that, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So yeah, that's all I gotta say. Y'all let me know your thoughts. I'll catch you guys for another video pretty soon about Etheria Restart. And yeah, like, subscribe, share like other YouTubers ask for, and I'll catch you guys next time.